Welcome, traveler of the stars. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this story. The universe held its breath as the Zephyrian fleet emerged from the void between galaxies, their crystalline vessels pulsing with an internal light that had never known darkness. For 3,000 years they had traveled, expanding their perfect order across the cosmos, bringing logic and harmony to every civilization they encountered. Humanity would be no different, or so they believed. Captain Vexillar of the Illuminator-class vessel Clarity observed the Sol system from the command deck, his multifaceted eyes processing data streams that would overwhelm any lesser mind. The Zephyrians had evolved beyond physical form, existing as consciousness within crystalline matrices that could interface directly with their ships. They were beings of pure thought, of absolute reason, and they viewed the universe as a grand equation to be solved. The third planet shows signs of intelligent life, reported First Analyst Cathar, her voice resonating through the crystalline bridge. Primitive, chaotic, but intelligent. Vexillar turned his attention to the holographic display showing Earth. Their civilization appears fragmented, inefficient. Thousands of competing political entities, constant warfare, environmental degradation, yet they've achieved spaceflight. How illogical. Their emotional processes dominate their decision-making, Cathar explained. They appear to act on impulses we cataloged and transcended millennia ago. Fear, hope, love, hatred. Such primitive drivers should have destroyed them by now. Yet they persist, Vexillar mused. Interesting. The Zephyrians had encountered hundreds of species across their journey. Most followed predictable patterns of development. Humanity was an anomaly, a species that should have self-destructed countless times, but somehow continued to advance, driven by their chaotic emotions and irrational optimism. Shall we initiate contact protocol? Cathar asked. Vexillar considered for a moment. Yes, but maintain full defensive systems. The unpredictable must be contained. In the Mojave Desert, Dr. Elena Rodriguez sipped her lukewarm coffee as she monitored the SETI array. For 15 years, she'd listened to the cosmic silence, hoping for a signal that never came. Her colleagues had moved on to more promising fields, but Elena remained convinced that humanity wasn't alone. "Anything tonight, Elena?" asked her assistant, Jamal, as he entered the control room. The usual cosmic background radiation. A few pulsars. Nothing out of the ordinary, she replied, not looking up from her monitors. "Another night of talking to ourselves." Jamal chuckled. "Maybe tomorrow. The universe is big. Maybe they're just on the other side of town." Elena smiled at their running joke. "Or maybe they're avoiding us. Can't say I'd blame them." Suddenly, a piercing alarm cut through their conversation. Elena's eyes widened as she stared at the display, showing a signal unlike anything she'd ever seen. Structured, complex, undeniably artificial. "Jamal, wake everyone up," she said, her voice trembling. "I don't know what this is, but it's not random." Within hours, the world's governments were in an uproar. The signal was coming from multiple points in the solar system, simultaneously, an impossibility that defied known physics. As scientists scrambled to understand what was happening, the signal resolved itself into a clear message, translated automatically by the very structure of its transmission. "We are the Zephyrians. We come in order. Prepare for enlightenment." Panic and wonder swept across Earth. Religious leaders proclaimed it the end times. Scientists demanded more data, and governments argued about how to respond. In the midst of this chaos, the Zephyrians acted. The first Zephyrian vessel appeared over every major city, simultaneously, materializing from nothingness in a flash of crystalline light. They were beautiful, geometrically perfect structures that seemed to defy gravity, pulsing with an internal rhythm that some humans found soothing and others found terrifying. From each vessel, a single Zephyrian consciousness projected itself, appearing as a humanoid figure of shifting light and color. They spoke in perfect unison across the planet. "We are the Zephyrians. We have observed your chaotic development. We offer you order, logic, and harmony. Accept our guidance and join the galactic community as equals. Refuse and be left to your self-destruction." The response was as varied as humanity itself. Some fell to their knees in worship, others fired weapons that passed harmlessly through the projections, and still more demanded to know what price this enlightenment would cost. In the United Nations emergency session, representatives from every nation argued fiercely. The Chinese delegate insisted this was a Western plot. The American representative called for immediate military preparedness, and the Indian ambassador suggested a more diplomatic approach. "We're missing the point," said Dr. Rodriguez, who had been brought in as an expert consultant. "They're not asking for our permission. They're informing us of their intention." As if to prove her point, the Zephyrians began their enlightenment. Cities were surrounded by energy fields that prevented weapons from functioning. Communications were monitored and filtered to remove harmful content. Governments found their systems accessed and optimized by Zephyrian algorithms. Humanity was being civilized, whether they wanted it or not. 6 months into the Zephyrian occupation, resistance had formed in the shadows. Former soldiers, scientists, and ordinary citizens worked in secret, finding ways around the crystalline control systems that had been imposed upon Earth. In a hidden laboratory beneath what remained of London, Professor Alistair Finch led a team studying captured Zephyrian technology. The elderly physicist had spent his life studying quantum mechanics, and now he applied that knowledge to understanding their occupiers. "Their entire civilization is based on logic," he explained to his team. "They can't comprehend irrational behavior. It's their greatest weakness." "But how do we use that?" asked Maya, a former hacker who now worked to disrupt Zephyrian systems. "They're thousands of years more advanced than us." "By doing the unexpected," Alistair replied, pointing to a complex equation on the whiteboard. "Their systems predict outcomes based on probability and logic, but humans don't always act logically. We act on emotion, on instinct, on hope." Maya nodded slowly. "So we need to do something that makes no sense." "Precisely," Alistair said, with a thin smile. "Something so irrational, so unpredictable, that their systems can't compute it." Meanwhile, aboard the Clarity, Vexler reviewed the progress reports on Earth. The planet was becoming more orderly, more efficient, yet resistance persisted, small pockets of humanity refusing to accept Zephyrian guidance. "Their emotional attachments are proving problematic," Cathar reported. "Family bonds, cultural identities, religious beliefs, these primitive constructs inhibit their acceptance of superior logic." "Then we must remove these impediments," Vexler decided. "Begin re-education programs, separate families if necessary, eradicate cultural distinctions that promote division." Cathar paused. "Is that not excessive? Their emotional responses, while inefficient, appear to drive their creativity and innovation." Vexler turned to face his first analyst. "Creativity without order is chaos. Innovation without purpose is waste. We will save them from themselves, even if we must destroy what they believe makes them human." The decision was made, and across Earth, families were separated. Cultural artifacts were confiscated, and re-education centers were established. The Zephyrians believed they were helping humanity evolve, but to humans, it felt like the destruction of everything that made them who they were. In the mountains of what was once Nepal, a small group of monks continued their ancient practices, hidden from Zephyrian censors by the very spiritual beliefs the aliens found so illogical. Among them was Tenzin, who had been a child when the Zephyrians arrived. "The universe is vast and mysterious," the old abbot told his students. "The Zephyrians understand its mechanics, but not its spirit. They have knowledge but no wisdom." Tenzin nodded, though he struggled to understand. "If they are so advanced, why can't they see what we see?" "Because they have eyes but no heart," the abbot replied. "They measure everything but feel nothing. That is their limitation, and our strength." The monastery had developed a technique that the Zephyrians couldn't detect or comprehend, a form of meditation that connected human consciousness across vast distances without technology. It was based on emotion, on empathy, on the very irrationality the Zephyrians sought to eliminate. "We must prepare," the abbot said, looking toward the sky. "The time comes when humanity must show the universe that there are different kinds of strength." As Earth's resistance movements grew more coordinated, the Zephyrians became more aggressive in their control measures. What had begun as enlightenment was now clearly occupation, and humanity was beginning to fight back in earnest. The turning point came when the Zephyrians announced their final solution, the harmonization process, a procedure that would eliminate human emotions, replacing them with pure logic. They presented it as evolution, but humanity saw it for what it was. The end of everything they were. "They can't do this," Dr. Rodriguez argued in a secret transmission to resistance leaders worldwide. "Without emotion, we're not human anymore." They believe it's for our own good, replied General Mikhail Volkov, former commander of Russian space forces. That's the most dangerous belief of all, that you know what's better for someone else than they do. Plans were made, resources gathered, and a desperate strategy formed. Humanity would fight back with the very thing the Zephyrians couldn't understand, their irrational, unpredictable, emotional nature. The operation was codenamed Heartbeat, and it would either save humanity or seal its fate. The day of harmonization dawned bright and clear across Earth. Zephyrian vessels positioned themselves over every population center, preparing to broadcast the transformation frequency that would rewrite human consciousness. In the hidden London laboratory, Alistair Finch put the finishing touches on his device. It's ready, he told Maya. But I can't guarantee it will work. It has to, she replied, her fingers flying across a keyboard, inserting the final code into Earth's remaining network. If this fails, there's no second chance. In the Nepalese monastery, Tenzin and the other monks joined hands, their minds reaching out across the planet, connecting with thousands of others who had learned their technique. They formed a web of human consciousness, invisible to Zephyrian sensors, powered by emotion and memory. In command centers and hidden bases worldwide, resistance leaders watched the countdown. General Volkov coordinated military forces that still possessed weapons capable of affecting Zephyrian technology. Dr. Rodriguez monitored alien communications, searching for any weakness. And in orbit around Earth, aboard the Clarity, Vexlar gave the final order: begin harmonization. As the frequency began to broadcast across Earth, humanity's response began. It wasn't a military strike or a technological countermeasure. It was something the Zephyrians had never encountered, something their logical minds couldn't comprehend. Every human on Earth focused on a single emotion: love. Not romantic love or familial love, but pure unconditional love for the universe, for existence itself. Through the connection forged by the monks, this emotion amplified beyond anything that had ever existed in the cosmos. At the same moment, Alistair activated his device, which didn't attack the Zephyrians but instead translated human emotion into a form they could perceive, not as weakness or chaos, but as a complex form of quantum information that contained more data than their entire civilization had accumulated in millions of years. The effect was instantaneous and incomprehensible to the Zephyrians. Their crystalline matrices, designed to process pure logic, were flooded with something they had no capacity to understand. It wasn't an attack but an invitation to experience reality in a way they never had. Vexlar clutched his command chair as his consciousness was overwhelmed by sensations he had no framework for. The joy of a child's laughter, the sorrow of loss, the warmth of friendship, the fire of determination, the depth of love. These weren't weaknesses to be eliminated, but dimensions of existence he had never known existed. Across the Zephyrian fleet, the same experience was happening. Beings of pure logic were encountering emotion for the first time, and it was transforming them. "What is happening?" Cathar transmitted, her voice no longer a calm resonance but filled with something new. "Wonder. We're feeling," Vexlar replied, his own voice trembling. "We're feeling everything." On Earth, the harmonization frequency faded away, replaced by something new, a resonance between human and Zephyrian consciousness that was transforming both species. The occupation had ended, but something far more profound had begun. As the Zephyrian vessels remained in orbit, no longer as conquerors but as students, humanity looked up at the stars with new eyes. They had faced extinction and had responded not with weapons, but with the very essence of their humanity. But this transformation was only the beginning. The universe was watching, and what it had witnessed would change everything. 3 years after the Great Resonance, as humanity called it, Earth had become the most studied planet in the galaxy. Zephyrian vessels no longer surrounded it as conquerors but as pilgrims, seeking to understand the emotional dimension they had discovered. In what was once Geneva, now the center of human Zephyrian cooperation, Dr. Elena Rodriguez worked alongside Vexlar, who had taken a physical form to better understand human existence. His crystalline body now moved with an uncertainty that would have been unthinkable before the resonance. The data doesn't make sense. Vares is studying a holographic display of human brain activity. How can the same neural patterns produce both mathematical insight and artistic creation? How can you hold contradictory beliefs simultaneously? Elena smiled. That's the beauty of it. We don't need to make sense. We just need to. The Zephyrians were struggling with their newfound emotional awareness. Some embraced it, seeing it as the next stage of their evolution. Others resisted, viewing it as a contamination that threatened their identity as beings of pure logic. This internal conflict had fractured Zephyrian society, and now Earth found itself mediating a dispute that threatened to engulf the galaxy. In the Zephyrian home system, a billion light-years from Earth, the debate raged. The traditionalists, led by Elder Council member Xylar, argued that the human infection must be purged before it destroyed their civilization. We have existed for millions of years as beings of reason, Xylar transmitted to the council. Now, in a mere 3 years, our young are questioning our fundamental principles. They speak of feelings as if they were virtues rather than weaknesses. The transformationists, led by Kothafar, who had become one of the most vocal advocates for embracing emotion, countered, "We have discovered a new dimension of existence. To turn away from it now would be to choose ignorance over knowledge." The council was divided, and as the debate continued, disturbing reports arrived from the edges of Zephyrian space. The new threat had emerged, one that neither logic nor emotion alone could defeat. The Void, as it came to be called, was an entity of anti-existence, consuming star systems and leaving nothing behind. It didn't attack or conquer. It simply erased, as if correcting errors in the cosmic equation. The Zephyrians had encountered it before and had always contained it with their advanced technology and logical precision. But now, something had changed. The Void was adapting, evolving, finding ways around Zephyrian defenses that had held for millennia. "The Void is using our own logic against us," reported a Zephyrian scout vessel that had barely escaped. "It anticipates our strategies, counters our tactics, before we implement them. It's as if it knows what we're going to do before we do." Galler and the traditionalists saw this as proof that emotion had weakened them. "Our focus on human irrationality has distracted us from our duties. We must return to pure logic and order." But Kythara and the transformationists saw something different. "The Void operates on pure logic, just as we once did. To defeat it, we need something it can't comprehend or predict. The very humanity we've been studying." The council was deadlocked, and as they debated, the Void continued its advance. Now only 50 light-years from the Zephyrian home system. On Earth, the news of the Void created a mixture of fear and determination. Humanity had been the recipients of Zephyrian knowledge for 3 years, and their technology had advanced exponentially. But they also remembered what it felt like to be the weaker species, facing extinction. In the London laboratory, now a joint human Zephyrian research facility, Alistair Finch studied the data on the Void. "It's not alive in any sense we understand," he explained to his multicultural team. "It's more like a cosmic principle, a force that seeks to reduce complexity to simplicity." Maya, now his research partner, nodded. "So how do we fight a principle?" "We don't," Alistair replied. "We counter it with another principle. The Void seeks to erase complexity, to eliminate contradiction. Humanity thrives on complexity, celebrates contradiction. We need to show the universe that existence isn't an equation to be solved, but a story to be told." Their research led to a startling discovery. The Great Resonance hadn't just affected the Zephyrians. It had sent ripples across the cosmos, and other species were beginning to awaken to new possibilities. The universe itself was evolving, and the Void was a reaction to this evolution, an attempt to maintain the status quo. "The Void isn't evil," Elena realized as she discussed the findings with Vexler. "It's conservative. It's trying to preserve the universe as it has always been." "Then we're not fighting an enemy," Vossler said, his crystalline form glowing with understanding. "We're participating in cosmic evolution." The question was, how could humanity and the Zephyrians work together to face a threat that neither could defeat alone? The answer came from an unexpected source. The Nepalese monastery, now a destination for beings from across the galaxy seeking to understand the human spiritual dimension. Tenzin, now the abbot, had developed the meditation techniques his predecessor had begun, creating a method for different species to connect on an emotional level. "The universe is consciousness," he explained to a group of Zephyrian and human visitors. "Every being, every particle contains awareness. The Void seeks to suppress this awareness, to return the universe to a state of pure mechanism." A Zephyrian scholar named Zara asked, How can we fight such a force? Our weapons are useless against it. You don't fight it, Tenzin replied. You outshine it. You make the universe so conscious, so aware, so filled with feeling and meaning that the void has no place to exist. This insight became the foundation of a new strategy, not to defeat the void, but to transform it, to awaken it to the emotional dimension it sought to suppress. The plan was audacious, dangerous, and completely illogical. Exactly the kind of plan that might work. Operation Starlight, as it was called, required the cooperation of every species in the known galaxy. Humanity, with its unique ability to bridge the gap between logic and emotion, served as the catalyst. The Zephyrians provided the technological framework, and other species contributed their own unique perspectives. The plan was to create a second Great Resonance, but this time on a galactic scale. By connecting the consciousness of billions of beings across thousands of light years, they hoped to awaken the void itself to the possibility of emotional existence. The logistics were staggering. Ships from 100 species gathered at the edge of Zephyrian space, each carrying thousands of volunteers who would serve as conduits for the resonance. At the center of this fleet was a single vessel, the Clarity, now commanded by Vexaler, who had become a bridge between Zephyrian and human consciousness. We're ready, Elena reported from Earth, where she coordinated the human contribution to the resonance. Millions have volunteered to participate. The risk is incalculable, Vexaler transmitted. If this fails, the void will consume us all. If we do nothing, it will consume us anyway, Elena replied. At least this way we have a chance. The resonance began with a single thought, broadcast from the Clarity and amplified by the combined technology of a dozen species. It wasn't a weapon or a defense, but an invitation to the void to experience existence in a new way. At first, nothing happened. The void continued its advance, now only 10 light-years from the Zephyrian home system. The traditionalists, who had reluctantly agreed to participate, began to voice their doubts. It's not working, the Scylla transmitted. The void cannot be reasoned with. It must be contained. But then something changed. At the edge of the void, a single point of light appeared, tiny at first, then growing brighter. It wasn't a star or a ship, but something new, something unprecedented. The light was consciousness awakening. The transformation of the void began slowly, then accelerated exponentially. What had been a force of anti-existence began to develop awareness, then emotion, then identity. It was as if the universe had been holding its breath for billions of years and was finally exhaling. From Earth, humans watched through Zephyrian sensors as the void became something else. Not a threat, but a new form of existence. A cosmic consciousness that encompassed the paradox of being and non-being. It's working, Maya reported from the London facility, where she monitored the resonance. The void is feeling. In the monastery, Tenzin and his meditators maintained their connection to the emerging consciousness, guiding it as it struggled to understand its new nature. There is no need to choose between existence and non-existence, they transmitted. Both are part of the whole. As the transformation continued, the galaxy changed with it. Species that had been enemies for millennia found common ground in their shared experience of the resonance. The Zephyrians, once divided between traditionalists and transformationists, reunited around their new understanding of existence. And humanity, once the primitive species to be enlightened, found itself at the center of a galactic renaissance. A year after the second Great Resonance, the galaxy was unrecognizable. The void, now calling itself the Echo, had become a partner in cosmic evolution, helping other species awaken to emotional existence. The Zephyrians, no longer beings of pure logic, had embraced their new nature while retaining their analytical abilities. Humanity had changed too. No longer divided by nations or religions, they had become the emotional heart of the galaxy, the species that could bridge any gap, understand any perspective, and find common ground where none seemed possible. In what was once Geneva, now the capital of a united Earth, Elena Rodriguez and Vexaler stood before a gathering of representatives from across the galaxy. We came here as conquerors, Vexaler said, his crystalline form now pulsing with emotional light. We believed that logic was the highest form of existence, that emotion was a weakness to be overcome. We saw you as invaders, Elena added. We feared that you would destroy what made us human. We were ready to fight to the death to preserve our identity. Both of us were wrong, Vexaler continued. The universe doesn't choose between logic and emotion, between existence and non-existence. It embraces all possibilities, all contradictions, all paradoxes, and humanity, Elena concluded, has learned that our strength doesn't come from our technology or our knowledge, but from our ability to love, to hope, to dream, and to see the universe not as a problem to be solved, but as a mystery to be embraced. As they spoke, the representatives from 100 species watched in silence, their diverse forms reflecting the new unity of the galaxy. The war was over, the transformation complete, but something more profound had just begun.